killed before it even reached the ballot in Missouri, Michigan, Montana, Nevada, Ohio, and Oklahoma in 2006. Killed at the ballot in Maine, Oregon, and Nebraska the same year. The one time it passed in Colorado back in 1992, the results for the state were so disastrous that succeeding votes and executive acts rolled it back. They repealed it. It's called TABOR. It means the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. It has a really snappy name, but it's sort of a bad idea. And it's back now. In Maine tomorrow, voters will be asked, do you want to change the existing formulas that limit state and local government spending and require voter approval by referendum for spending over those limits and for increases in state taxes? The question made it on the ballot thanks in large part to a conservative nonprofit group called Maine Leads. It was started 2 years ago, courtesy of funds from the National Taxpayers Union, the National Tax Limitation Committee, and the Sam Adams Alliance, none of which are actually from Maine. The initiative has also got the support of the grandpappy of TABOR, Grover Norquist, who says that the Maine TABOR will sort of be a spark to other states. And if it passes, quote, it becomes a stronger sell in Arizona and Washington and Oregon and Florida. They want to try to pass these all over the country. Washington State has already had its own TABOR-style measure on the ballot for tomorrow. It's I-1033. It would limit state revenues so they, quote, do not exceed inflation and population growth. Initiative 1033 is mainly sponsored by longtime local right-wing activist Tim Eyman. The man who funded these measures in many states in 2006, who we don't know if he's funding them this year until campaign disclosures are made at the end of the year, is a guy named Howie Rich. Howie Rich? Good question. He's rich from New York City real estate. That's how. And according to the Oregonian, Mr. Rich funneled more than $7.3 million into various ballot measures in various states, mainly pro-property rights, anti-government initiatives. The return on his investment in TABOR so far has been bupkis. Voters have rejected all of these proposals. Joining us now is Matt Miller, a senior fellow at the Center for American Progress and author of the book, The Tyranny of Dead Ideas, Letting Go of the Old Ways of Thinking to Unleash a New Prosperity. Matt, thanks very much for joining us.
Good to be with you.
So things like TABOR interest me because there's an obvious interest here by the people who keep funding them. I know why libertarian millionaires like Howie Rich want the country to run this way. What I don't understand is how they keep getting back on the ballot over and over and over again. We keep being asked to vote on them over and over again, even when voters always say no.
Well, unfortunately, Rachel, the fact that an idea is proven as a disaster doesn't mean it dies in American politics. One of the perverse things of our federal system is that there's dozens of states that the advocates of these kind of lunatic measures can continue to funnel money into to try and get them on the ballot. And as you know, basically, to get things on the ballot, you just need enough money to get the paid signature gatherers in the state to qualify for these ballot measures. And so as a result, if you've got a fringe group of kind of anti-tax radicals, even when you've seen it gut a state like Colorado on health care, on education, so much more, they can get this stuff on the ballot and bring it to a vote.
They can keep bringing it up as long as they can keep paying for it, as you say. What's the, I guess, group psychological process that we need to go through so that measures like this do get sort of laughed out of the realm of reasonable policy proposals? They have been disproven over and over and over again, but it's a fight every time.
Well, I think it's because when you've got people feeling the pinch in a recession, it sounds reasonable when the advocates of these ideas say, why should government grow faster than population and inflation? If you think about it for a minute, though, when everyone knows that health costs are rising 3 times faster than inflation, and health care is one of the biggest things that happens at the state level through programs like Medicaid, it means that essentially in this recession, when states have already had to kind of cut their arm off to cope with the dramatic budget cuts and revenue shortfalls, these measures would essentially say that even when times get good again, you can't grow that arm back. You can't make tuition more affordable at community colleges. You can't put back the health care cuts you've put in place. And I think progressives need to do a better job defining the stakes and showing why this reasonable-sounding thing at 30,000 feet is actually disaster for the things they care about.
Does it come down in the end to marketing, to coming up with the best slogan, to coming up with the best nickname, like the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, for your policy proposal? Is it about making it simple enough so that it seems dumb? It isn't just dumb when you look at the details.
I think it's a combination of better marketing and better messaging, but I think there also has to be a full attack on the Republican denial about taxes. You know, Grover Norquist, the big taxophobic nihilist who's behind a lot of this stuff, he and a lot of his Republican colleagues don't understand that we're about to retire the baby boomers, so we're going to have twice as many people on Social Security and Medicare. They're still clinging to the days of 1980 when they could keep promising deep cuts in marginal income tax rates. Those days are gone. Every thoughtful Republican behind closed doors knows it, and until you expose the Norquists of the world for being a kind of lunatic fringe and in just deep denial of the facts on these issues, we won't make the headway we need to.
Matt Miller, the author of The Tyranny of Dead Ideas. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. It's a real pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me.